This week we had kind of two transactions back to back that as we were talking here in the office, I thought, wow, isn't it funny how this business works? And we had one client who came in and they're looking to purchase an investment property, and they own a couple of properties already. They're pretty much maxed out on the amount of money that they're able to use towards servicing a mortgage payment based on what the bank says. Their credit score was average. I mean, it was I think it was probably less than 700, but good job, stability. Their credit report's pretty clean, but they're right on the edge of what they could afford. But we were able to get them an approval. And the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we have a client buying a principal residence. Him and his wife make a ton of money, tons of investments, but the nature of his income is last year and probably in the decade before, he's been an employee. And at the end of last year, he decided to become a consultant, but he doesn't quite have his consulting contract sorted out yet. And so the bank said, well, we know you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but because we can't figure out and kind of get our head around how you earn that income, because you don't have a contract, you're not on someone's payroll, your last 2 years of tax returns don't show you're self-employed, so we don't really know how to sort out how much money you make for purposes of figuring out the mortgage that you're looking for. And so, man, we've been going back and forth on this file for weeks already. And so in the first case, we had a client that was just on the edge, but because they could sort of show they had some job history, and notwithstanding their income was maxed and they're right kind of on the border of what they can afford, bank said, no problem, we'll go ahead and we'll fund you because you sort of fit inside the box. And yet we have this other client that has a net worth that's 3 times the amount of the mortgage they're asking for. Between him and his spouse, they generate $500,000 a year in annual income, but because the bank can't prove it in the little box that the bank looks to prove it in, the bank just said, we're going to have to figure out a different way to do this deal. So I share that because sometimes people don't really understand that it might feel like bankers don't live in the real world when you hear an example like that. And it's important to know that when you're dealing with a bank or a broker, you're trying to get the mortgage or loan, that you are educated on what the options are. At emilynow.ca, we've worked really hard to try and lay out for you the basic criteria that you're going to need to meet. But then as you get past that, and you're now looking to work with someone that's actually going to interact with the bank on your behalf, there's just these tiny little details that can make pretty big differences in your ability to get approved. And in this particular case, this one individual didn't really realize the impact that not having a contract would have, firstly, and then secondly, that his income isn't verifiable because of the nature of how he earns it. So made an offer on a property, waived conditions because of his financial net worth, and then is now getting to the point where he realized that maybe him and his wife needed to do a little bit more homework or understanding of what was going to be required before getting that mortgage. But in both cases, we're able to get the client what they were looking for, but it wasn't without some pain and some